two beehives. Same valley, same flowers, same bees. One produces honey that sells for $35 a kilogram. The other produces honey that sells for $6,800 a kilogram. The difference is not the species, not the season, not the beekeeper. The difference is that one colony found a cave, 1,800 meters underground, in complete darkness, in a mountain in northeastern Turkey above a valley so remote it sits 50 kilometers from the nearest town. The bees found it. Nobody told them to. Nobody knew they were there. For 7 years, they made honey in the dark. Nobody tasted it. Nobody knew it existed. And then one morning in 2009, a third-generation beekeeper named Günay Gündüz noticed something strange. A steady stream of bees disappearing into a crack in a cliff face. Not foraging, not swarming, going in and not coming out. He watched them for a long time. Then he went to find professional climbers. Getting into the cave required a team. Ropes, harnesses, headlamps, and professional speleologists who made their living descending places most people would not stand near. The cave entrance was a narrow crevice in the cliff face, wide enough for a person sideways, not much more. The first descent took hours. The air changed immediately. Cooler within the first 50 meters, then mineral heavy, then almost still. No wind, no sound from the valley above. The walls were limestone and granite. Water came through in thin cold sheets that darkened the rock to near black. The passage narrowed in places. At certain points the team moved on their backs. At 1,800 meters the passage opened into a chamber, and the walls were covered in honeycomb, not in frames, not in boxes, plastered directly onto the curved rock in wide dark sheets, the way bees build when no human has ever intervened, against a surface that gave them exactly what they needed. 18 kilograms. Dense dark, the color of dark amber against wet stone. Gündüz had never seen anything like it. Nobody had. That was the point. He took samples carefully. He left most of it. The samples went to a laboratory in France. The tests came back weeks later. The honey was 7 years old. It had been there undisturbed since 2002. Before anyone had reason to look at a crack in a cliff face and think something was in there. According to that testing, the mineral profile was unusually high. Calcium, potassium, magnesium. The composition suggested honey that had not just been made by bees. It had aged slowly against the cave rock over years, the way a wine absorbs the ground beneath the vine. Except no winemaker planned this. This is not a story about making honey more expensive. It is a story about finding a condition no one can manufacture. To understand why bees in this place could make honey like that, you have to understand Artvin. Artvin province sits at the northeastern edge of Turkey where the Black Sea climate meets the Caucasus Mountains. The valleys here are deep and damp. The forests are dense. Botanists have counted more than 500 plant species in a single valley. Nearly a quarter of all Turkey's flora compressed into one mountain range. Rhododendron, wild thyme, mountain clover, medicinal herbs with no names in most languages because no market has needed to name them. The Caucasian mountain grey bee evolved here specifically. Longer tongue than almost any other subspecies. Adapted to cold, to moisture, to the narrow flowering windows of alpine terrain. It forages earlier in the morning and later into the dusk than most honeybees. Artvin is one of its last gene centers in the world. In the Kakar mountain valleys, the traditional Karakovan hive is a hollow log cut from linden wood. It is suspended in the forest, not placed on the ground, hung in the trees, integrated into the landscape the way beekeepers here have always done it. The forest is the hive. The beekeeper's job is to watch. The honey forest exists because the bees are allowed to choose it, not the other way around. Gündüz's family has kept these bees for 3 generations. His grandfather watched the forest. His father watched the hives. Gündüz watched a crack in the mountain. What he inherited from 3 generations was not a recipe. It was a way of watching. The patience to follow a swarm instead of directing it. The understanding that sometimes the bee knows something the beekeeper does not. Ottoman sultans wrote beekeeping into royal law. Fatih Suleiman Selim. Honey was taxed and protected as a strategic material, a healing substance controlled by royal decree. The Hittites kept bees in clay cylinders 3,000 years ago. The knowledge of how bees behave, where they go, why they choose certain places over others. That knowledge passed between families as carefully as land titles. That inheritance led Gunduz to follow a swarm into a crack in a cliff. That is the entire inheritance. The harvest happens once a year, one window, no exceptions. The bees are never removed. No hive frames are ever installed. The colony lives in the cave year-round, foraging from the plateau flora above. The same medicinal plants, the same alpine flowers. The same narrow-tongued gray bees working the same terrain their ancestors worked for thousands of years. The harvest falls in late autumn, deliberately delayed until November when the colony has had the full season to produce and the comb is mature. Before November, the bees are still working. After the snow closes, the mountain paths it is impossible to reach. November is the window. That is all there is. When the harvest comes, the team descends again. Ropes, headlamps, the darkness, the narrow passage, the same cold air that gets heavier the deeper they go. The Caucasian Grey Bee is docile by nature, slower to sting than most, calmer in confined spaces, but calm is not guaranteed in the dark at depth. Headlamps cut through their environment. Human hands reach near the comb. A disturbed colony in an enclosed cave is a different calculation than a disturbed hive in open air. There is nowhere for the team to move quickly. The ropes are the only way out. They work in near silence. They move slowly. To cut the comb from the cave wall, the team uses long-handled tools. They work section by section, moving across the chamber face. Each piece is lowered into containers and sealed. No frame to pull. No box to lift. Every cut is a judgment call. Take too much and the colony cannot survive the winter. Take too little and the harvest cannot cover the cost of the descent. There is no formula. Gunduz decides. He takes what the cave offers. One year the colony had built deeper into the passage than the previous season, farther back into a section too narrow to work without risk of collapsing the comb or blocking the team's exit. They spent 4 hours underground. They mapped the new growth. They made a decision. Leave it. Come back the way they came. The comb in the accessible chamber was thinner than expected. The colony had used that season's production to expand, not to store. They returned with less than 8 kilograms. No second attempt. The window had closed. 8 kilograms divided across laboratory costs, climbing fees, transport, and a year of waiting. The math is not the point. The cave does not scale. The bees decide what is produced. Gunduz does not. He takes the honey to be tested every year. Every batch goes to independent laboratory analysis before it leaves his hands. Not because the buyer demands it. Because he does. He turns the jars in his hands before sealing them. Doesn't say anything. Sets them down. Here is the number that changes the shape of this story. On the same plateau above Gunduz's cave in the same valley, the same gray bees forage the same flowers. Other beekeepers collect that honey from surface hives. Same nectar, same season, same insects. That honey sells for approximately $35 a kilogram. The cave honey sells for $6,800. No chemical process separates them. No different species of bee. No different season. The cave honey tests reportedly show higher mineral content, which Gunduz attributes to the rock environment. But the fundamental material is the same. Mountain nectar gathered by the same bee, processed in the same way. The difference is location. 1,800 meters of darkness. The year Gunduz first auctioned cave honey, the price was 45,000 euros per kilogram. Not because the production cost 45,000 euros. Because no one had ever held this before. Because the laboratory in France had never seen a mineral profile like it. Because the buyer looked at what the bees had made in the dark over 7 years and decided the number was correct. The price fell after that. 45,000 to 28,000. 28,000 to 5,000. 5,000 to 6,500, which is where it has settled. At those reported prices, still nearly 200 times more than the honey harvested in sunlight above. The cave creates the value. The beekeeper did not. He found it. Gunduz has said in the few interviews he has given that the price is not for his work. It is for the conditions the cave created over centuries. In rock that was forming long before his family ever kept a hive. He was asked once whether he plans to expand, to find other caves, to hire more teams to bring in investors. He said the bees would have to find the caves first. He is not being modest. He is describing the only version of this that exists. The bees chose this cave. They chose it without a beekeeper. They will continue choosing it when he is gone. Who descends after him, who tests the honey, who seals the jars? His 3 generations of watching have not prepared an answer for that. The beekeeping tradition of Artvin is better documented than most. Hemshin women trained in Karakovan techniques. Government programs funding hive access on state land. Ecotourism routes through what the Turks call Bal Ormani, the honey forest. The valleys are protected. The knowledge is being recorded. But the cave is not the tradition. The tradition is the valley. The tradition is the log hive in the linden tree. The tradition is the pattern of watching. The cave is a single observation. One beekeeper. One morning. One crack in one cliff. There is an argument worth hearing. Elvish honey's production figures are not independently audited. The annual yield of approximately 20 kilograms comes from Gunduz himself, not from a third-party verification. The exact cave location has never been published. No peer-reviewed clinical trials exist testing the specific health claims made for this honey. The neighboring Sarakayer surface honey from identical flora sells for $35. That difference may be at least in part a story. The story of a beekeeper who followed bees into a cave and called a French laboratory. This is the strongest version of the skeptic's case. Luxury food has always sold narrative alongside nutrition. The rarer the narrative, the higher the price. Elvish honey is a discovery story. And discovery stories at the right moment are worth 45,000 euros a kilogram. The argument has weight. But Gunduz does not sell advertising. He does not expand. He does not name the location. He does not invite press to the cave. He does not build a brand on the story. He descends once a year, takes what is available, gets it tested, and seals the jars. Herod stocked it at 1,250 pounds for 200 grams. He did not name that price. The market did. Something in the honey earns it. Or the world has simply decided that some things are worth more than what the math suggests. Things made in complete darkness by creatures that need no one. And it is not always clear which of those is true. Elvish honey is not a product. It is a condition. One that a cave created over centuries and that one beekeeper's patience made accessible. A jar of Elvish honey holds approximately 250 grams. It is dark in color. Darker than almost any commercial honey you have seen, closer to molasses than gold. The bitterness hits first. Then a mineral depth layer difficult to name. It does not taste like nectar processed in sunlight. It tastes like rock, like cold water, like the inside of something sealed for a very long time. Before Gunduz descended in 2009, that honey had been in the dark for 7 years. Completely made. Waiting. It had no value because it had no witness. The honey did not change the moment he found it. Only what we knew about it did. There are approximately 20 kilograms of it each year. One cave, one colony, one beekeeper who follows bees instead of directing them. The surface honey from the same valley sells for $35 a kilogram. At those reported prices, the cave makes it nearly 200 times more valuable. The bees chose the cave. Nobody asked them why.